The gate clanged shut like a gunshot. The dust was still hanging in the heat, and the sheriff's lights rolled over the hill, while Karen shouted that I was heartless and her kids started to cry. I had one hand on the new lock boots planted on my own non-HOA driveway, and for a second, it felt like a bad reality show where the villain thinks she's the host. You know what I mean. The sheriff eased up, siren off, looked at my no trespassing sign, then at her, and I could tell by the way he didn't rush that this scene wasn't the emergency she hoped it would be. She'd been telling anyone in her HOA that my place, the one just outside their reach, was basically a community playground, perfect for her kids. Perfect for their picnics. Perfect for whatever. She didn't want to pay for behind her own gate. And for months it was letters and threats and drones and pop-in inspections that didn't mean a thing. In the county books. Just noise. But the day she ushered her kids through my open gate like she owned the air. I breathed, then tried to slip in behind them. That was the day the new automatic lock clicked and turned my driveway into a line she couldn't talk her way across. I told the sheriff I'd open up as soon as she stepped back and stopped yelling that the kids were fine inside the shade with my dog and a hose, and he nodded because he could see it with his own eyes, not some story on a flyer. She kept waving her phone, promising to call the mayor, the inspector the second coming. But the sheriff just asked for papers, and I held out my deed like a quiet hammer, house drive all notarized, while she sputtered about community access that never existed. The crowd watching from porches got real quiet, and you could feel the power shift like a breeze through tall grass. Not dramatic, just steady. And when she finally took 2 angry steps back, I hit the remote and let her kids shuffle out first. Heads down, popsicles melting. And for a beat there was nothing but cicadas and the dry chuckle of the sheriff, who had clearly seen this kind of theater before. That was the hook, sure, but the story started way earlier. Passive-aggressive notes about harmonizing standards. A man in a polo at my gate mumbling about an association inspection with no county credential drones that hovered just long enough to make you feel watched. And every time I answered with patience, it seemed to feed her like applause. I tried to be neighborly until neighborly became an invitation to be walked on. Then I welded the lock, ran cable for cameras, and built a folder with dates and screenshots and times. Because if you've ever been pushed long enough, you learn that paper beats bluster and video beats gossip, yeah. That happened. The real twist came at an old diner with a friend who used to work at the county clerk's office. Over greasy burgers and chipped mugs, she slid the parcel map across the booth and tapped a sliver of land. I didn't even know was mine, an ancient easement that crossed the HOA's main access road. A forgotten strip that meant leverage, not a weapon, not something to wave around, just a simple truth I could file to clarify my rights before anyone tried to pretend the lines were fuzzy. I walked out of the county building with a stamped notice and a steadier heart, and that same evening, I watched through my binoculars as Karen fired up a neighborhood meeting inside the clubhouse, her hands drawing big circles in the air, like she could redraw the county map with personality alone. The next morning, a loudspeaker on the sidewalk and flyers with my address in bold accusations stacked like chairs. Dangerous goats blocked emergency routes detaining children. And I didn't argue, I just filmed. And the deputy who rolled up wrote her a citation for disturbing the peace, while my neighbors pretended not to grin. That's when a reporter called, said she covered HOA messes all the time, asked to see the gate if we blurred the address. And I said yes, because sunlight isn't just a disinfectant. It's a mirror. If you're lying, it shows. If you're not, it sticks. Karen couldn't stand losing the spotlight, so she staged a sequel. parked crooked doors open a Saturday morning drop-off with towels and a camera pointed her kids at my pond and tried to make customary use in real time. But the gate timer clicked at 9 like it always does, and the steel jaw shut, and I started recording my own narration while she screamed kidnapping to an audience that had already seen my dog lick those kids' hands last time. The sergeant who arrived this round didn't do small talk. He asked for facts. I handed him the folder, prior trespass emails, the HOA letters, the easement clarification snapshots of the fake inspector, and he took one long look at the cameras blinking red along my fence, then at the kid sitting under the tree sipping water, and wrote her an official warning that said in plain English what I'd been saying for months. Step on this property without permission again, and it's criminal, not cute. After that, the letters from her lawyer started popping like firecrackers. Arbitration demands, safety claims, big town words strung together, and my county friend told me to answer. Once certified, deny their jurisdiction, attach the deed copy the sheriff, then stop feeding the machine. So I did, and the follow-up letter got shorter, and their tone lost that shiny confidence. And meanwhile, the reporter's story went live. When HOA overreach meets a locked gate, and suddenly the comments were full of people I'd never met, telling their own war stories, sharing screenshots of Karen on my sidewalk, with a loudspeaker turning my goats into memes that made me laugh harder than I should have after a month like that. She pushed for an emergency injunction. Next walked into court with a fresh stack and fresh hair, and the judge, a dry man who looked allergic to nonsense, asked her attorney. The most dangerous simple question I've ever heard. What jurisdiction does the HOA have over a non-HOA property? And when the man admitted there was none and produced no easement, the judge read. My deed skimmed the county inspector's note and tossed the whole thing with prejudice like a paper airplane that was never meant to fly. He warned her about abusing the process, and I walked out into the hallway feeling 10 pounds lighter, told the reporter's camera the only line that fit. The law works. And I meant it. You'd think that would be the end. But pride is a tricky engine. It sputters and catches and refuses to die. So she pivoted to a community safety rally in the park. Cookies and banners, and a story so warped it almost turned itself inside out. Claiming I'd seized public land with secret money, while my neighbor live-streamed and captioned her claims with fact checks that were funnier than they had any right to be. That night, an anonymous envelope slid under my gate. Internal emails from the board, whispering about removing her, worrying about liability, trying to find the exit. And I understood the thing I'd been hoping for quietly. It wasn't just me anymore. The institution behind her was getting tired of being dragged by her shadow. The sheriff called to ask for a formal statement. Said they were preparing a restraining order based on the file I'd built. And when the order came down, it said what the fence had been saying since day one. 50 feet, no contact, respect the line. And the street got so quiet, the cicadas sounded like applause. The reporter ran a second piece. The radio joked about the Goatgate saga. The board met behind closed doors, and for the first time in months, I slept without waiting for the crunch of tires at midnight. The end didn't come with fireworks. It came with barbecue smoke and paper plates, and kids laughing behind the inner fence while we grilled for the neighbors who had stuck around through the worst of it. Karen rolled up soft and pale, holding an envelope like a white flag. Said she wanted to return what she'd taken and apologize to the kids for making them part of something they didn't understand, and she left the envelope on the post because the restraining order line mattered now even to her. Inside was her resignation and a note admitting my property was private, and she'd acted without authority. And I won't lie. I read it twice before I believed what my hands were holding. I filed the letter with the rest, scanned it for the record, and then set my phone down and let the evening be what it was. The goats nosed the grass, my dog flopped at my feet. The gate stood the way a good boundary does, quiet, unexcited, not a fortress anymore, but a promise kept. Folks will argue about whether locking the gate with kids inside was too hard a line, whether I should have opened sooner or never locked at all. And I get it. It's messy at the edges, it always is. But the sheriff saw the county, saw the judge saw. And if there's any lesson in the whole dusty movie of it, it's this. Boundaries matter, and how you defend them matters just as much with cameras. When talk fails with paper, when rumors grow teeth with patience, when your pride wants to swing first. If you were standing here with me on this porch, you'd smell the charcoal and damp earth, and maybe you'd understand how deep the quiet goes when a storm finally loses interest. So tell me what you think. Was I right to hold that line? Would you have done it different, or have you lived your own version of this where somebody decided your space was theirs? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, and if you've got a story like this, I'm listening.